Yeah, and Naomi's the boss.
Recording now. Recording started.
So do we have any business to discuss? I guess, I mean, I didn't want to, I kind of put together like just a draft agenda, but I didn't want to jump in on Kevin. So I'm not sure whether there was any business they wanted to touch on. Nobody has any business to discuss? Okay, I've got one thing that I want to talk about before we get into John. And another group that I'm kind of tied into is the SRAG Drawdown Task Force. And I think I've talked to you about SRAG before, Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. And Elizabeth Bagley made a presentation on drawdown. I guess it was last month, right? Drawdown's a kind of major project looking at efforts that can be made to reach drawdown, to reduce emissions to that point where the emissions quit going up and start going down. So I'm part of the SRAG Drawdown Task Force Solutions Committee. And our Solutions Committee has picked a couple topics to focus on initially, though we'll probably pick up more. The one that I'm involved in is going to be food waste reduction. So if anybody's interested in getting involved at the next level, Rotary International level, on food waste reduction, or locally at food waste reduction, because a lot of what we need to do is going to be local, let me know. We've got an organizational meeting on December 17th. So if you let me know you're interested, I'll make sure you're included in the meeting. And we can talk a little bit about what we're doing locally, what we're trying to do locally, what I'm trying to do here on Kauai mainly, before that and over the next couple of weeks. So
I'll touch on Project Drawdown and a couple of the areas of solutions in my conversation.
Okay, I guess are we ready to get into everything then? Yeah. Okay. So today's presentation is I guess kind of entitled "The Climate Crisis." It's Rotarians, people of action, a detailed look at the issues and what you can do to make a difference. It's basically, like I said, I've seen kind of different versions of the presentation, but it's an overview of kind of what's happening in the world regarding climate change and some specifics of what we as Rotarians can do to address this problem and help make a difference and reduce the impacts. So our speaker today is John Mathers. John is a business advisor and personal coach with Evo Associates in Mill Valley, California. Over the last 4 decades, he's worked with hundreds of companies and their management teams, and his work has been based on enhancing team and individual performance. John is past president of the Rotary Club of San Francisco and has held several positions within Rotary District 5150. As a result of his lifelong interest in the environment, get into this. John's special focus is on the climate crisis and has led to an active role in promoting education and action within the Rotary community of clubs. He's worked with a number of fellow Rotarians to build a network, the Rotary Climate Action Teams Network. And John has recently become a climate reality leader with Al Gore's organization and will be joining the 24 Hours of Climate Reality on October 10th and 11th. He already did that.
Did it, done it, been there. 3,000
Anyway.
people presented. 3,000
Yeah.
people presented over 24 hours.
So, yeah. So,
Take it away.
John Mathers, take it away.
Okay, but the host is disabled me. I need to be allowed to share my screen.
Oh.
Naomi, can you let me in?
Yeah.
Okay. Terrific. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, so glad to be with you, especially a chance to talk to Rotarians, and especially on some of my favorite islands. I wanted to talk about this existential crisis that we're in and what each of us can do. But I want to start with my middle name. And my middle name is Grinnell. I'm named after my grandfather and my great uncle, George Bird Grinnell. And he was the founder of the Audubon Society and father of Glacier National Park. Grinnell inspired me, along with many others, through the Boone and Crockett Club he founded with Teddy Roosevelt. So it's not surprising, and that's me, by the way, not surprising that the environment has always been an important part of my life. Grinnell had a glacier in Glacier National Park named after him, and it was beautiful. Here it is in 1920 and 2013. And here it is more recently. Clearly, something is missing. Can everybody see that image?
Yeah,
John?
John, we're still basically we're seeing the text mainly and a small picture in the corner. I don't know if you need to
Okay, so
click on play or
let's try this again.
yeah, that's it. We got it now.
Okay, now can you see that?
Now we're back to the small picture in the corner and the text.
Okay. Let's try this again.
That's a little better. We've got the big picture. There we go. We got it.
Okay, all right. So there's my great uncle. There's me. And there's 1920 and 2013. And this is what it looks like more recently. There used to be, believe it or not, a glacier that flowed all the way down to that third lake way down there. So that's why I'm focused on addressing climate change. I want my kids and their kids to have a world that's not threatened with extinction. And here's my brood right now. So let's get into it. I'd like you to hold your questions till the end. Put yourself on mute. Many of you are very aware of the climate crisis, so I'll move quickly through much of this and focus on actions. Consider aspects of this presentation just as a reminder. But I want to start here. This is the first picture of Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw. It was taken on the last Apollo mission, and it changed the way that humanity thought about our common home. It was called the Blue Marble. And it reminds us that we're all connected and that our actions have an impact on our planet. But let me be clear. Our blue marble, our Mother Earth, is compensating perfectly to sustain herself. Every change in our climate and environment happens within her perfect equilibrium. She has been in balance for millions of years, and she will continue to be for millions to come. So what's the problem? Perhaps we, as human beings, are the ones that are out of balance. And we, not our Mother Earth, are at the existential tipping point where we may well lose the ability to recover. So the sky is not a vast and limitless expanse the way it appears to us when we're standing on the ground looking up. In reality, there is just a thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. And we're putting 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into that atmosphere every day. That pollution, especially carbon dioxide, is building up and it's trapping heat. You know the basics of global warming. It's been understood since the 1800s. Energy from the sun comes to the earth in the form of light. That energy is absorbed by the earth and warms it. Some of the energy is re-radiated from the earth in the form of heat. And some of that outgoing heat is trapped in the atmosphere, which is a good thing. It keeps our planet at a stable temperature. Now, however, we've been thickening that atmosphere by filling it with heat trapping pollution, and we're trapping heat at an unprecedented rate. Many sources of human-caused global warming pollution. The key areas are electric production at 25%, food, agriculture, and land use, 24%, industry, 21%, transportation, 14%, buildings and others, 6 to 10%. But the main cause of rising global temperatures is the burning of fossil fuels. We're headed for an increase of 4.7 degrees Celsius by 2100. That's 8 degrees Fahrenheit. Just to give you a sense, here are the sources of pollution on the left that we talked about, and the ways we can address them on the right. Focus on the solutions. There are two natural ways to sequester carbon: coasts and oceans, 17%, land, 24%. That leaves 59% of greenhouse gas pollution to be addressed directly. We see the problem all around us. Did you know 19 of the 20 hottest years ever measured have been since 2001? The 5 hottest have all been the last 5 years. And 2020 is headed towards being another of the top 5. This has led to incredible temperatures, 123 degrees in India last year, 130 degrees in Death Valley just this August. So let's look at a few arenas where the warming is critical. All of this extra heat is being absorbed by the earth, and 93% of it is collected in the oceans. Look at these open ocean temperatures, just like the air temperatures over land. And this year is likely the hottest ever measured in the oceans. And heat is making the oceans more acidic. Some people call this the evil twin of global warming. The oceans have become 30% more acidic since we started burning coal and other fossil fuels in large quantities. The Great Barrier Reef has massive die-off of coral. When it gets white, that means that there's almost dead, and they can come back perhaps from it, but if it happens to extend over time, they'll die and they'll turn brown. 30% of that has just happened in the last 44 years on the Great Barrier Reef. And marine vertebrates have declined by just about half in the last 50 years. There was a recent finding that the nutritional quality of seafood has also gone down as the water temperature has gone up. And now we're finding dead zones around the world, locations where there's no oxygen in the water. Often it's the result of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, which is used by farmers all over the world. It feeds algae growth, and when the algae dies, all the oxygen is depleted. But it's the storms, the cyclones, the hurricanes that are the most obvious to most of us. This year, India and Bangladesh were hit by a super cyclone that was supercharged by significantly warmer weather over the Bay of Bengal. The super cyclone filled the entire bay, the largest bay in the world at 840,000 square miles. And you can see there Thailand and Myanmar and India. And here in California, we have storms being delivered by the Pineapple Express, a gift from Hawaii, an atmospheric river coming across the Pacific. Let me locate you here. This is Hawaii on the lower left, and this is Silicon Valley on the upper right. That's the atmospheric river, 2,300 kilometers. And this delivering system gives us in one case, 12,000 dry lightning strikes, which started over 500 fires. Usually, the Pineapple Express delivers rainy weather, sometimes too much rain, but we're not dealing with normal anymore. And here we are with extreme precipitation events. And they're becoming more common all around the world. Here's what's called a rain bomb in Phoenix in 2016. Looks kind of like a bomb, except it's coming down. And they produce record flooding. Here's Houston in 2017. You can see the same in many other regions around the world. Vietnam villages flooded this month. Death due to flooding in Japan this July. The same in the Philippines and India and China, landslides in Italy. And here's New York City last June. This is downtown New York. And this is all from rainfall. Remember the intensity of Hurricane Sandy? That kind of storm used to be 1 in 500 years. That has changed and will continue to change to the point where it's 1 in every 5 years. And you know all about this. The last few years have been difficult. And the next years will be even more increasing number and severity of floods and associated problems. I still remember visiting Honolulu when they had 9 inches of rain in 5 hours. This is even more. Some people wonder, how can global warming cause more precipitation and flooding at the same time, more drought? The extra heat trapped in rising levels of greenhouse gases actually leads to both. And as the climate changes, precipitation patterns also change, leaving some places with less rainfall. And in South Texas, they've been experiencing extreme drought for 2 years. And it isn't just impacting residents, it's also reducing the aquifer dramatically. This is just a few hundred miles from Houston, where there's been intense rainfall. Higher temperatures, not surprisingly, also have a direct effect on the frequency and severity of wildfires. The number of large fires corresponds closely to years with higher average spring and summer temperatures. Today, the fire season in western United States is more than 100 days longer than in the 1970s. And here in the Bay Area, we've been engaged in the results of lightning strikes and fires occurring across all of California. This is what climate change looks like. For us, anyway. And the number of climate-related extreme weather events has been going up worldwide, according to the insurance industry. The last 2 years rank among the top 10 most expensive for overall disaster losses, with more than 160 billion in 2018 and 140 billion in 2019. And here's a glacier in southwest Greenland in the summer of 1935. It shows glacial ice covering the fjord walls. The second photo is the same glacier almost completely melted by 2013, not even a century later due to rising temperature. NASA has precisely measured the decline in the mass of ice in both Greenland and Antarctica. All of this extra melting is raising sea levels worldwide. High tides are more often flooding the streets of large coastal cities around the world. Here is Newport Beach this year. And here's the result of high tides in Miami Beach, Florida on a sunny day with no rain. This situation will only get worse as sea levels continue to rise. And Miami is the #1 city at risk in terms of assets at risk, along with Guangzhou, China, New York, and Newark, and others. But look at cities at risk by population. Many huge cities in developing countries are very much in danger. If parts of these cities become uninhabitable, where will the people who live there go? The US Department of Defense has long warned about refugee crises connected with climate crisis, as well as pandemic diseases, water shortages, and food shortages. 25 people are displaced every minute. In 2025, there will be 200 million worldwide, some by war, some by scarcity, and many from climate crisis. One of Rotary's greatest projects, Shelter Box, in 2019 provided housing and food security for 145,000 people, and the need is increasing and they can't keep up. And it's expected that 13 million people will be displaced in the United States by the end of this century. The areas in blue are the most likely to be impacted. And we already see it happening. Consider the Gulf Coast, where two hurricanes, Laura and Delta, had 10-foot storm surges within a month of each other. And speaking of refugees, during this pandemic, the task of rescuing and sheltering people is further complicated for them and for their rescuers. And heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields with rice, corn, and soybeans. Exposure to higher levels of carbon dioxide also decreases the nutrient content of many staple crops, such as rice, wheat, and soy. Just a side note, there is much to understand about other significant contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, especially when it comes to livestock, our soil, waste, and lifestyle. The total methane and nitrous oxide emissions globally are huge. And methane is being released as the permafrost in the Arctic heats up, and it's happening at an alarming rate. Methane is 84 times as potent as CO2, even though it doesn't stay in the atmosphere as long. This is especially true in Siberia and off the coast of Siberia. And infectious diseases, heat stress, air pollution, and waterborne diseases are all influenced by a changing climate and not in our favor. These warmer temperatures have an impact on the spread of tropical diseases. Modern transportation and air travel play a part, but the potential range of many diseases expands as regions farther and farther towards the poles get warmer. This means there's more and more places where a disease like Zika can take root. At the same time, climate change, along with other factors like ecosystem loss, are contributing to the worst extinction event since the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Based on the average temperatures, the planet's been on a roller coaster ride for the last 10,000 years. It's worth considering that with the extreme heat of the planet over the past century, there may be one specific extinction event of concern: the human race, likely sooner rather than later. So let's put this one to bed. Do we have to change? Yes, but can we change? There are solutions available to us now. Look at wind energy. The growth is exponential. It was predicted to provide 30 gigawatts of electricity worldwide by 2010. By 2019, we had exceeded that prediction 22 times over. And did you know that wind energy could supply 40 times more electricity than the entire world currently uses? Even more dramatic than wind, here's the exponential curve of solar energy installed around the world. In 2002, the best projection was 1 gigawatt of solar energy capacity installed per year by 2010. In 2019, we exceeded the goal by 121 times. And just like other technologies, computer chips and cell phones, solar costs have fallen dramatically. In some regions, solar energy is less than half the cost of electricity from burning coal. And across the world, solar is leapfrogging old technologies. In many places where there's no electric grid, we're seeing consumers and businesses installing solar panels and turning it into a business for themselves. Every hour, the Earth gets as much energy from the sun as we need to run the entire global economy for a year. If we can increase the fraction of this energy that we harvest and use, we can make a lot of progress towards solving the climate crisis and helping local economies at the same time. On another front, battery technology is an essential part of the green revolution. Batteries allow us to store excess solar and wind energy and use it during times when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. Batteries are also critical to the electric vehicle market. In 2016, the global cumulative storage capacity approached 3 gigawatts, twice the capacity in 2011. As storage technology gets more efficient and cheaper, the market is growing, and it's expected to be 900 gigawatts in 2040. All these automobile manufacturers are now offering or preparing to offer electric vehicles. This is another part of the sustainable revolution. So, can we change? Yes. Leaving the big question, will we change? In December 2015, at the Paris climate negotiations, every nation in the world agreed to phase down greenhouse gas pollution to net zero emissions as early as the second half of this century. And the US decision to withdraw has likely to be turned around on January 20th. So we're going to be back in the accord. And climate action isn't just what countries do. We're seeing states, provinces, cities, universities, corporations, and nonprofits commit to reducing emissions. The US is very much still in the game. And here is the US, no matter what the federal government or White House policy might be, 24 of our states, representing well over half the American people, are already going farther than required by the Paris Accord. And multiple US cities have committed to 100% renewable energy. Even though small, there are few that have already arrived. People are marching and demonstrating. We're seeing demands at the ballot box. More than 70% of the US voters are fully in support of moving to 100% renewable electricity. And some of the world's biggest companies have pledged to reach net zero carbon emissions by mid-century. Walmart's a good example of a company taking action to address the climate crisis. They are one of the largest installer and purchasers of solar power in the country. They are undertaking a massive reduction effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in their supply chain by 1 billion tons by 2030. And oversight is being handled by environmental advocacy groups. Now, if we could only see an EV truck, well, we're seeing them close to being available. There's a huge race that's on now to get to the market. But we still have an issue with governmental support for renewables. We're slow to shift away from fossil fuels. On a global basis, fossil fuels get close to $6 trillion annually in subsidies. Even without the indirect costs from negative impacts, the subsidies equal 2.9 trillion annually, while renewable subsidies are less than $1 trillion globally. Amazingly, oil and gas exploration in the US still gets more subsidies than renewables. It's a leftover from World War II. And here's the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's, one of the most commonly used stock indexes, and it's been going up over the last decade. And here is the energy sector, not a good investment. And if you look at the stock market returns on clean energy sector, they've gone up 60% in the last 3.5 years. But fossil fuel companies, they've gone down 12% in the same period. And here's the overall value of ExxonMobil. And here's the value of Tesla, just surpassing that of ExxonMobil. And a lot of these companies now are coming to understand that they're facing a real crisis. So look at what we can do. There are plenty of solutions that are within our reach. As an individual, a member of a club, or in your community, consider working with the data and ideas from Project Drawdown, a coalition of scientists, researchers, and advisors from all over the world with a goal of providing 100 solutions to reverse global warming. Here's the Drawdown overview and their research into solutions. I know it looks a little complicated. It's a picture of all the solutions and their relative impact. Now, each of them, the middle one, the middle area shows if they get a 2.0 degree in the inner circle as a target, and the 1.5 degree is the outer. And the Drawdown has identified actions that can be taken in each area. So let's look at 2 quick examples of the work and some of the practical suggestions that come from it. So electric generation and the use represents 25% of greenhouse gases going into our atmosphere. Again, note the target of 2.0 degrees Celsius and 1.5 degrees Celsius, the inner and outer circles. So if we break down these areas, onshore wind turbines can replace fossil fuel plants and generate electricity at a utility scale. Utility scale, the hundreds of thousands of panels can tap the sun's clean, free energy. Concentrated solar energy can use sunlight as a heat source to run steam turbines. Distributed solar, rooftop solars are definitely a distributed system, whether grid connected or part of a standalone system, and they offer hyper-local clean electric energy. And LEDs, the light emitting diodes, are the most energy efficient bulbs available, transferring most of their energy use into light rather than wasted heat. So what can you do since you're not a utility? And here's a list. Encourage your neighbors, associates, and friends. Shift to clean energy sources available in most areas. Unhook your gas line. Put solar panels on your roof, buy or lease. Program your thermostats to save energy. Support legislation to move to renewables and away from fossil fuels. So those are some areas. There's lots of others that are included if you get the renewable, the project drawdown list. They have all sorts of actions you can take. So looking at food, agriculture, and land use, it represents 24% of the pollution of our atmosphere. And you can reduce food waste, what John's been talking about. A third of the world's food is never eaten, and it means land and resources used and greenhouse gases emitted to produce it are unnecessary. A plant-rich diet, consumption of meat and dairy, as well as overall calories often exceeds nutritional recommendations. Paring down and favoring plant-based food reduces demand, thereby reducing land clearing, fertilizer use, burping cattle, and greenhouse gas emissions. So, peat moss, forest farming, fuel extraction are among the threats to carbon-rich peatland. Protection and rewetting can reduce emissions and support carbon sinks. And nutrient management, overuse of nitrogen fertilizers, a frequent phenomenon in agriculture, creates nitrous oxide. And some of the actions you've probably already taken include buying at the farmer's market, adopting reforesting projects, which I think you're doing, reducing food waste, which you're doing, composting, which you're doing, buying clean green products, using bamboo instead of other woods, and cutting down on meats. So buy the drawdown book and download the free drawdown review. Both provide inexhaustible sources of information about the crisis and solution, and consider specific solutions that you can take. And know that Rotary has joined the growing voices seeking to address the impact on our planet. The new 7th area of focus has been created to support Rotarians in taking action. Many of us have worked to have this critical new area of focus for those less fortunate than that we serve, for our local communities, and most of all, for future generations. And there's Rotary organizations to support you. SRAG is expanding its reach while continuing to focus on important projects around the world. ARCAT is helping to build club infrastructure to focus on community projects and to share successes with other clubs. Working together, we support Rotary, our environment, and confront the climate crisis. Use our online resources, Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, SRAG, and Rotary Climate Action Teams Network, ARCAT, websites. Each of us have the websites that provide data, action, and success stories. Take the time to do a short and long form footprint assessment. The best short form is the gold standard. We Renew and World Wildlife Fund are good detailed assessments. If you go to We Renew and input your zip code, you'll access local assessments with potentially 50 to 75 suggested actions you can take. And businesses and organizations can seek green certification based on UN Sustainability Development Goals, or through a myriad of green certification programs in almost every country and US state. There are no ones that are the best, as each one fits the needs of local community. So research and find the one that's available in your area. And all of the resources I'm going to mention will go into the chat at the end of the presentation. But most important of all, make your voice heard around legislative action. The Citizens Climate Lobby is in the forefront of legislative action to address the climate crisis in the United States. And there are plenty of other groups outside the US taking action and looking for support. Look at their programs and policy and give your time and energy. No matter what you think, if we're going to make a change, it isn't going to come small. It's going to come from regulation and controls. Something has to be done to force fossil fuels to shift away from the current trajectory. And take advantage of our speakers to inform you and your club on climate change issues and solutions. This is just a partial list. The full list is available at RCAT SRAG. And be sure to join the third Thursday of every month for our Global Speakers Forum. Tomorrow, our speaker is Dr. Karina Nielsen, and the subject is Ocean and Coastal Sinks. Join us if you can. Put your email in the chat and I'll send you an invitation. In December, we have Dr. Robert Verchick, and he's going to be talking about the economics of transition to a sustainable world. He comes from the EPA, and he is a lawyer and has some tremendous information on where we can go and how fast we can get there. So please take action. That's the bottom line. Create an action team, become an individual member of SRAG, $30 a year. Join the RCAT network as an action team. Membership is $100 per club team, and access our regular programs. Our speakers can come to your club, connection to other clubs, share your projects. Use your voice, your vote, your choices in the marketplace, and your club's influence in the community, as if your world depends on it, because your world depends on it. We need your help. And I want to leave you with the words of Carl Sagan regarding our blue marble.
Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you, and I will put in the chat all the information that I've talked about and a little more. Questions? No questions.
I got to unmute myself.
There we are.
I had a comment first, John. Um, when we talk about climate change, or when most people talk about climate change, it seemed to be mostly limited to sea level rise. Sometimes we talk about weather patterns, and we all think we can deal with those things. But some of the things that you pointed out in your presentation there, I think we have to understand and realize we have to deal with, and they're going to be much more difficult than sea level rise and hurricanes, which are difficult enough in themselves. The mass migration, the fact that when millions of people start moving from communities that are losing credibility or losing viability to larger cities and towns, moving from one country to another. This is a major issue that's going to affect us all, and it'll affect us all in the United States too, even though we kind of feel we're isolated. The other one is war. As you mentioned, the Department of Defense thinks climate change is a major issue that we have to deal with. And that's because they foresee more and more violence and more civil war and actually between countries in the near future due to climate change. Food production. Food production is going to be dropping because of the increases in heat. And we've got to deal with that. It's not just that things will cost more, some things will be unavailable. And for some people, some of the people that we are now trying to serve, starvation is going to be an issue. Medical issues, again, we've seen it right now with the COVID thing. We've seen it with other diseases. As the planet warms, these diseases are going to start moving and becoming more prevalent. So these are some of the things that when you talk to friends about climate change, I think you need to bring up, because people just kind of think, oh, if I don't live near the ocean and I'm not where there's a hurricane, well, I don't have to worry.
So John, let me just, I really want to make sure that we understand that it's wonderful for us to focus on the mitigation issues that we're going to have. And there are numerous, and they're plentiful, and they're going to be increasing. But I don't think that makes all the difference that we need to make as Rotarians. We have a unique position that as we have acceptance in all of our communities. We're recognized as honest, as partners, as people who care. We have the ability to bring people together to address things. That means that we have the ability to actually influence our communities and our legislatures in order to be able to do the hard lifting, which isn't mitigation. Mitigation is, oh, we've got a crisis, we need to solve it. This is the hard lifting of regulation. We need to regulate. Right now, for instance, as a good example, California is the leading economic power in the world when it comes to controlling carbon through taxes. So we have a program that is 85% of all pollution is managed through that in our state. And yet we're giving away permits to allow people to pollute. And we're only charging $2 a ton, whereas the IMF says we should be charging $30 to $40 a ton. So the issue here is not, yes, we need to deal with the mitigation, but the real issue is our using Rotary and Rotary's position in the community and in the world to be able to promote legislation that will make a difference. I cannot stress that enough. We need to do both. Yes, mitigate, and we need to go out and actually push for change in our in the world, but change in our legislation. And I know you guys are doing it. I know you're doing it. You've got action teams that are doing it.
We got any more questions or comments? Yeah,
Mariko.
Marco, yeah, you gotta, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, John. I just wanted to focus on the mitigation issues and also about the action, because I think a lot of young people are really interested in getting involved in the mitigation activities. And I think this is really an interesting area that Rotary can also engage with young generation. So, I mean, do you have any really interesting, exciting examples that you have come across in your district or your club or where you have spoken, which involved young people with the Rotarians?
Well, the two things that we're noticing is that Rotaractors are very willing to promote climate action in their neighborhoods and in their universities. They also are right out front when it comes to cleaning up plastic or taking action in their area. So they're very supportive of it. And we've given them the opportunity to be able to select projects that they want to take on. Most of them are already what I would call green as individuals. So again, it has to do with what can they do as a group to go out and make a difference. So they've taken on projects. We have every month there's a cleanup on the beach, which is good. They're also getting involved in, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's a nonprofit that was of Rotarians that was started in Amsterdam that is doing some wonderful things with capturing plastic and recycling it. So
I've got a comment on that. Because I just got a few days ago, got a notice on a new presentation, a webinar that's going to be put on by the Climate Reality Project. That's the project that John's involved in. It's basically talking to young people about climate change. So if any of you are interested in it, I will post that on the chat. I think, let me look and see when that is. That's,
I should also let you know that we have our cadre of speakers. We have a couple that speak specifically to young people and have been very successful at it. We have one individual who is a climate reality person as well as a Rotarian, and he's done 280 presentations, of which about a third of them have been to young people. So he has a knack for linking up with them.
Are there
Naomi.
specific webinars? Are there specific webinars for the interactors and Rotaractors? I think we got to dial it down to their level so that they can understand. And that's something that the Eco Club was talking about as one of the projects of getting into the schools to get this information out. So those are projects, Rotarians that worked in April. One of the suggestions was to pick up plastics around, all around the state. So we're looking at doing that. But I apologize, I'm gonna have to leave for another meeting at right now. So thank you so much, John, for your presentation. And I'll get it up on the website as soon as I can convert it to YouTube.
Great.
Thanks.
Bye, Naomi. Hi, John.
Yes.
I work in healthcare, and everybody is scared because we're in the middle of a pandemic and we're using so much PPE, and we have to. Yet that is also a big environmental issue. Maybe you can address a little bit. We're in the middle of the pandemic, and we need to take good care of our environment too. So What are your thoughts about the specific time we are in?
It seems to me that we've got an opportunity to learn from the pandemic. It's amazing how many people have come together. I'm not saying that we're not divided, but how many people have come together to make a difference. In our club, we have a number of doctors. A couple of them are emergency room doctors. We also have a woman who runs 2 ICUs. One of them is COVID. And one of the doctors came to us and said, we need to have more PPE. Can you help us? And we have produced we found somewhere where we can actually make them in San Francisco, and make them so that they are as ecologically sound as possible. And we've ended up making tens of thousands of them and distributing them in San Francisco and well beyond. So all I can say is, if we can do that as a group, and we can learn from that on how to come together in a crisis, then the issue is, do you see it as a crisis? Do people understand it? And it's exactly what you're talking about with young people. It needs to be easy to understand. The presentation that I went through is, it can be very rough on people. Oh my God, you mean all of this is going on? And I've got many more. What's happening with methane in Siberia is scary, because if all of that methane is released, which it's about to be, it's coming up and it's 85 times more powerful than carbon. So there's a lot going on that we need to address. So if you want to scare people, we can do that. But I'm much more interested in having people come together and say, what can we do? And how can we get out on the street and do something that would make a difference for legislation? I say that over and over again. We're not going to get change unless we're willing to actually push on the legislation that's necessary. So I would suggest anybody, Citizens Climate Action Group is really a powerful group to be a part of. Did that answer your question? Or did I go off in a direction here?
You answered it. I also was curious to hear that you produced PPE that was environmentally friendly, and that's a big concern too, all the waste that we produce to just protect ourselves. I mean, we're drowning in all of the PPE waste.
Yep. I don't think you're going to change a lot of people that really see that as we got to do whatever we need to do right now. But again, look at it from a broader perspective. We're learning from the crisis.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
So, John, you mentioned the Rotary Climate Action Teams. Those are set up at the club level. Is that the way you've got them arranged?
Yep, they're set up at the club level, and with projects. What I want to do, and what I've been doing, is sharing the projects that people are doing that demonstrate the power and partnership that Rotary can create in a community. And to me, that's where we need to go. So, and I've mentioned this before, John. I've got 2 clubs that have gone out to their community, and they've partnered with the clean energy group in their community, and they partnered with the business community and with the city council, excuse me, or with the county, in order to be able to install solar on large projects, business buildings, multi-unit housing, so that what happens is, because it's coming from the clean energy sector, it's coming from the solar power area. It's coming from the city. Rotary is able to bring those people together and say, okay, let's do this together and make it viable. So very powerful.
So if we go to that website that you mentioned, was it rcat.org? Is that, I can't remember.
rcatnow.org, .com, excuse me. rcatnow.com.
rcatnow.com. Yeah. Yeah, because we have a environmental action team within our club, and yeah, I'd kind of like to see if we can get them to focus on climate change quite a bit. So,
Well, let's, if you want help in finding an area to focus on, I'd love to have some of our people or myself help you in doing that.
okay, keep in touch.
You
Okay.
mentioned a link for tomorrow's presentation.
Yes. I can give it to you over the phone, or I can, let me see if I've got, yeah, I can give it, I'll put it in the chat. It's 11 o'clock tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time. And you're perfectly welcome to join us. It should be very interesting. The woman is going to be talking about what's happening in the oceans and what we can do about it. She's a professor of biology and oceanography.
Thank you.
You bet. Anything else, John? Anything else? Roz, do you have a question?
Oh, still muted. Oh, there you go.
It's just incredible, the information that you shared with us. It's just absolutely interesting. So thank you so very much for sharing it.
You bet. I'm any opportunity. Any opportunity. All right. You guys take care. Have a wonderful evening. I'm sorry I'm not there in person.
Yeah. And yeah, next time you get to Kauai, if we ever, well, you can come to Kauai now. All you got to do is take a pre-flight test. And we're open up for business for a select few.
Now, I'm not going to be traveling for a while until things calm down in the
yeah.
the
Anyway,
pandemic.
next time you come to Kauai, there's a couple sites I want to show you. One major one is a major photovoltaic installation that we've done here. Our utilities done. Fully connected to batteries, Tesla batteries. We've got like, must be a dozen shipping containers full of Tesla batteries at the site. So it's the biggest battery storage solar system I know in the state and probably in the country. So get a chance, we'll take it around.
Send me descriptions and pictures. I'd love to get more information on that.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
All right. Please take care. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks for speaking.
All right.
And I'm sure we'll talk again
Ciao.
later. Okay, well, there's not too many of us left. Oh, it's just me and you, Roz. So, from what I understood from Naomi by some emails, and then also talking to her just before everybody else got here, Kevin's going to be taking over leadership of this group. Right now, I've kind of working with Naomi, tentatively scheduled a meeting, our next meeting for, I think it's December 16th, but Kevin will have to confirm that. And if you've got any comments or questions on this, on what John said or anything that I've put together, let me know and I'll get back to you. So you have anything else to say?
Nope, thank you so very much. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Okay, yeah, it's always good to hear about not just about the bad stuff, but hear about the good stuff that is being done or that we can do. So always keep that in mind. Okay, well, thanks for being here and next time.
Thank you, and I'll see you next time for sure, and stay safe over there.